Hello, family. This is Brother Jamala again coming at you with another topic. I'm also known as Brother Soldier 4D. We've been talking about strength of character, and we've been talking about all those other topics: self-love, self-hate. So we're moving into the spirit of the fighter in the context of the Black African struggle. I call it the spirit of the fighter because fighting is a very broad topic. So we get into the spirit of the fighter, you get into methods of fighting, all the way from individual playground fights all the way up to grown men fights in the institutions and all of that. So we're going to have humble beginnings here. These are like primer sessions that we're doing so that you can get a feel for the different topics, and then we can probably expound upon those topics in the near future. So anyway, the spirit of the fighter. When we have the things in us as self-love, our strength of character, and we have a sense of community, a sense of culture, a sense of nationhood, a sense of being loving and belonging to each other. We have something for which to stand for, something to believe in, and then we have the values of giving us our spiritual values about God and how God interacts with man and how God interacts with the individual and things that we know we need to do to please God. All of these things are something that makes us have value. And when we have that value of these things, we begin to protect those things. So when there's a perceived threat against those things, we become fighters naturally. But we're fighting for a good cause. See, to fight out of hate is much different than fighting out of the spirit of love. Because the spirit of love is in the redemption, reconciliation process. Hate is in the denunciation and rejection type of aspect. And it depends on the values. It has to be still rooted in their values, because just because you have a spirit of love to reconcile or to cherish, it has to be for the right reasons and for the right things. So you can't be loving crime and loving theft and loving killing and loving slinging dope and selling dope. These are wrong things to love. So we're talking about out of a genuine heart of the Creator. And we're talking about preserving mankind. So in the sense of battling, we begin to have small battles, and they become larger battles. But one of the first battles we're going to have is the battle within the self. The battle to be the right kind of man you need to be. Only the spirit of love evokes that. So what are those things inside the individual that we must battle inside of our minds? We have the history of slavery and colonization we've already talked about. That's already one battle. Then we have the battle of greed, lust, arrogance, covetousness. When you desire and obsess over something that somebody else has and you try to make it your own, trying to take it from them, like their girlfriend, their wife, anything that's valuable to those people, you covet that. That's an abomination to God, according to the God of history and the scriptures. But it's also a foul play here in the land of the living here. So those things we call vices. If you have a tendency to smoke, you do drugs, those are added things that are become more of a battle that we have to combat. And some of those things we get involved in because we haven't really accepted ourselves. Why would we consume drugs unless we have some kind of disdain for ourselves, or we're trying to be accepted by someone? So these things, when we fight against those things, it teaches us to battle. Once we can deal with the lust and desires of our flesh, they call it in the scriptures, they call it lust of the flesh. Once we can deal with those, we can begin to battle more accurately outside of ourselves. So deal with the enemy within. Deal with the enemy of self-hate. then you can deal with the enemy in your fellow man because you've cast the beam out of your own eye. You can see clearly what's going on in your brother's eyes. Now you become a deliverer, or you become a comrade in order to uplift your people, in order to move forward. So those vices you have to get rid of, and you teach your children self-discipline. All of this can be summed up in self-discipline, teaching a child the right way to treat a sibling, teaching a child the right way to treat elders, teaching a child the right way to value their community and value their village, and teaching the child the way to show allegiance to their nation. So all of these are battles from within, but they come through discipline, not chastisement, but self-discipline. Like if a child has homework to do, he sits down for 2 hours and he does that homework. He does not enjoy TV. He does not enjoy the playground. He does not enjoy dessert until he gets his chores out of the way, sweeping the house, cleaning, doing whatever he's supposed to be, his responsibilities. And he usually doesn't like doing these things. Eating the right food, vegetables, discipline. Then he can enjoy the other things. And even if he doesn't enjoy the other things that he wants to do, he still needs to be accountable and responsible for his chores and taking care of his studies and his homework. This as a child, he learns to battle just his own flesh. He's learning to battle. And he's learning self-discipline so that when temptations come to provoke him and to make him very angry, he can hold his cool because he has a sense of discipline. He's not always down at the police station because he went upside somebody's head that he could have controlled. So the battle within is the beginning. Once you conquer that, you go for the greater battles. The battles out on the playground, the bullies out on the playground. You have to coach them through that. And as we move up the chain, and once we begin to master ourselves, we can begin to pick and choose the battles we think are right. Now, they always say in the saying in the North America, if you see a good fight, get in it. Meaning that if there's something worthwhile that's going to benefit the community, that's going to benefit your people, you might want to get in that fight. Okay? So, the other thing you want to look at is trying to develop a sense of prayer and a sense of dedication to God, to your Creator. Because God will be with you in many of these battles of self, in the battles of the greater community. God will be with you. Now, we learn to battle because we value something. And because we value something, we have to battle. So in that Black African experience, we've been put in a situation where we're trying to get out of something. So that's a battle in and of itself. We always call that the battle of the scars that we have received in our mind from the trauma that we've gone through as a people. So all of this is warfare. And then you have what is called it's like a stair-step process when you go from smaller battles to greater battles. So you don't just do this all at once. So the developing of a warrior is in the making. Okay? Now, love starts with the self. Then love goes out. We keep saying this. So if some enemy or something comes against you're in a more justified stance by being in a spirit of love to battle and to fight than you would be if you were in a spirit of hate and begin to battle and fight. Because you can see the enemy clearly that he's not right, just because of where you stand and the principles you stand on alone. When somebody comes against you, they really don't like the value system that you stand for. That's why when Jesus came on the scene and said to the Pharisees, if you knew God, you would have known me. He's talking about himself. He said, because he does the work of the Father. And if you were doing the work of the Father, you would love me because you will see me like you see yourselves. But because you have your father the devil, you hate me. So a lot of times when we do well, it doesn't mean we're going to be received of man. We're not going to be received of our fellow man or even some of our siblings because they think we're too good. But we're just trying to hold to some principle. They may just hate you just because you love God. That's their problem. It's not your problem. It only becomes your problem when they can stop you from progressing. Now it's your problem. And when it becomes your problem, you have to decide how you're going to battle with it. Because a lot of the things that happen with Africans sitting passively on their own continent, the enemy came. You didn't invite him. He came on his own, and he came and decided to take what you had. He felt like you had something of value. And then you begin to fight because you know it's not right. But if he's more powerful than you, then you may suffer defeat. But because we have this history, we should always be saying never again. And we should be like the Jews of Europe. Never again do we want to go through a Holocaust like what we did. So you have to be preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. So we have to do this. This is our homework. This is something that is extra in our lives just to safeguard our people and our interests. You don't let just anybody just walk up in your land and just exploit it. You have to be men and women ready for such a time. Okay? Because it may come back. And I believe that it's coming back. I truly believe it's coming back. And one of the things that's going to catch us with our pants down is the fact we don't love each other. And because of that, you reap what you sow. They'll take us right back down that path again. Whoever. It may not even be the European. It may be another nation that you are in bed with that you have no business being in bed with. Selling your people out. So battles come to the doorstep. It's just how we're going to decide to deal with it. Let me put on my spectacles here and look at something more detailed. Now, let's see, the time we have is small, so maybe I can touch on this just a little bit. But I want to look and see if I've missed anything. Okay, I do want to say something about the vices in us, impulses. Impulses like eating all the time, degrading our body. You know, that was another one that I think is a big attack for people who eat a lot. I think that covers that. When you know yourself, you can know the enemy. You can read the enemy. When you know you're in the right position with God and your people, you can see an enemy coming from afar off. You can read him like seeing through a glass clearly. You can read him. It's the wolf in sheep's clothing that you have to be prepared for, but usually you can discern that. Now, when you know the enemy, you know what is in his mind, what his tendencies. He has an inclination to want things that you have that are valuable. So you have to protect what you have. So you know that you're going to have to battle with this person sooner or later, especially if you can't come to any agreeable negotiations. They may come to try to take what you have. I mean, we learned this in the school playground. But, you know, when we begin to be bigger boys with bigger toys, we got to look out for these kind of things because they could destroy us as a people. So we're going to go ahead and conclude here because instead of getting into this next part, it's not going to be good to interrupt it. So I want to conclude here. Man, know thyself. Self-knowledge. Self-love. Love for the Creator God. It's our only way out. Peace.